The addition of a new type of format for 2021 was originally introduced with sprint races, with qualifying on Friday, a practice 1 before it, and a practice 2 after it, right before the sprint race, and then a race day, giving us a kind of 3-day weekend of action. 2022 involved the same 3 sprint races in the year with that same type of format, and now 2023 is looking to actually improve upon that and put a 3-day race weekend to the max and really show off what these cars can do and how hard these teams can actually work within a 3-day race weekend. I'm a big fan of these, and I'm going to talk about as to why I think this is a great addition to the new format of sprint races that we're going to get, and what might actually be a more regular thing in the future, and why points will now be a lot better on sprint races, and why every driver will care a lot more on the actual Saturday and Friday. The teams have came to an agreement. Our next race is in Baku on April 28th to April 30th. That is the weekend of when we get our first sprint race and our 4th race of the season. We've only had 3 races so far, with Australia probably being the best of them so far, which just recently happened. And now we are going to get our 4th race within almost a month's time, which is a very long period of time to wait. But Baku will be the race that will be the most insane race when it comes to upgrades, racing, and probably the safety cars and crashes that are going to come out during this race. We had a whole bunch of red flags in the Australian Grand Prix, and it made for a very interesting one with a lot of differing opinions. I'm probably, from what looks like, the majority as in saying that red flags are pretty good, and I think that that is the better outcome over a safety car or ending the race on a safety car. While it was chaotic for the reason that every driver cared. Every driver was going for the dive bomb. Every driver was trying to go for those extra positions to make up more points or to even come out with a win. The only 2 drivers that really survived that whole entire thing was really Lewis Hamilton and Max, from being in the front and not being in that whole chaos. With this next weekend coming up with the actual sprint race and now a new format, I will explain the new format. And right before I do that, thank you all so much for supporting on the videos. You guys are amazing, and thank you to everybody that likes and subscribes, and even people that dislike. Thank you all so much. I love the support, and I love you guys for being there with me. If you guys are not with me, then subscribe and like and keep up with the content. It comes out almost every single day, and I try my hardest to upload at least 4 to 5 times a week. So please hit that big red button and hit that like. Let's get into the new format and what we should expect for this 2023 season with the 6 times we're going to get this format. So this format is being trialed, so we might not get it 6 times, but at least for this first time, let's talk about it. So originally, sprint race weekends had a practice 1 and a practice 2. Disregard that, we're only going to have 1 practice. While it is not confirmed, this practice could either be an hour or an hour and a half. They might add additional time because we only get 1 practice. What this will mean is that the teams now only have 1 practice to actually find an optimized setup for 2 qualifyings and 2 real races. I mean, one that's shorter, one that's longer. So teams that take a longer period of time, that take practice 1, 2, and 3, typically to set up their car, will maybe struggle a little bit more and have to prep quickly. Mercedes and Red Bull are teams that optimize all 3 practice sessions to really get the best out of their car. Red Bull actually struggled in Brazil last year because they weren't able to optimize their car, and also really a strategy call. But Red Bull loves to use the 3 practices, and so does Mercedes, because they do have probably the best engineering teams on the grid, and they love their data. With there being now less data to actually take from, it will make for a more interesting grid. We might now have a very closer packed grid, which is already pretty close and about 1.4 seconds apart from the 10th place team to the 1st place team. After that first practice, we go straight into qualifying, and this qualifying will be for the actual race on Sunday. So the real important one that counts for the most points. If you get first, you get 25. As for the sprint race, which is not next, after that qualifying that we get on Friday, now on Saturday, the day begins automatically with a qualifying now for the sprint race, which as of right now, at least 20 days out before the race weekend, is still confirmed to be a Q1, 2, and 3 going into the sprint race. It was talked about to have a shorter session or a one-shot qualifying, which could still happen. There's still some things being determined, But as of right now, it is still a Q1, Q2, Q3 format, which I think is still the most fair, even though it is still pretty long. But who doesn't want to see qualifying for a longer period of time? That can sometimes be the best part of the race weekend, and seeing the cars fly their fastest and really optimize their cars to go the fastest is always really fun in qualifying. So on Saturday, we get that qualifying for the sprint, and right after that, about 2 hours later, we will actually get a sprint race, which lasts about 20 to 30 laps depending on each track. Sometimes can be shorter, like if it's a sprint race in Spa, which we have this year, which will probably be 13 to 14 laps, if that. Then we get our race weekend on Sunday. So essentially we have 3 days of actually seeing cars go at their fastest speeds. And now we'll have 2 fully packed days, which is Sunday and Saturday. And Friday will be pretty packed with an actual practice where we'll probably see the cars going at full pace as well. Engines is probably a big thing that's going to be talked about this year if we do have this format. This will put a lot of wear and tear on the engines, so it probably will develop into a lot more grid penalties throughout the year. I think this is a good thing. Grid penalties is good. I think the actual engine penalty thing is pretty good. It plays a bigger factor into reliability. Like last year, the Aston Martin was actually able to keep its 3 engines throughout the whole entire year. Were they a great car? No, but they were able to keep up in reliability, and sometimes it actually equivalated to them doing really well in the race. Vettel was able to actually capitalize, especially in Spa, where the car was not good at all, and he still was able to score points off of a car that was very slow in its straight line speed. This real format only adds on to greatness that Formula 1 really can be. With its format before, we had a practice 2 that was pretty much useless because the car was already optimized from one practice to really get the best out of the car. So why have a practice 2 just for them to run around in laps and just to watch? It's pretty boring. Now we actually have an actual qualifying that matters, and the engines will get used. I think this is great for the sport. It's really going up in a way that I think is good for the fans, but is also bringing that 3-day race weekend. Do I think this needs to be a race weekend every single time? No, but it being 6 times in a year is not bad, and I would argue that even having it 10 to 12 times in a year would not be bad. Having half the year be like that equals more points, more entertainment, more new fans, and I still think it keeps that real, I guess you can call, history of the sport. It doesn't take away from it, but it also adds only to it. What are you guys' opinion on this new format? Do you guys like it? Do you guys think that it's something that's essential to the sport or something that is not really needed? Let me know your thoughts down below. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.